Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. I am coming to you from near the Kansas City airport. I guess a free shout out Saturday morning near, we're in a Hilton, and it's been all sorts of baseball here down this weekend in the greater Kansas City area. Big tip of the cap to one Elijah Herbel, Brady Oltman's yesterday. So I've got some dad duty with Legion Baseball. Can join us today on Hail Varsity Radio. We're streaming as always. The stream link is open and available for you. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at H Varsity Radio. And of course, your friends on KFOR Facebook, KFOR Sports, Twitter, the way to go. Elijah, how we doing, man? I know it's a little early. It's been adventurous for you. It's kind of like trying to round up enough votes in the SEC for a 9-game regular season. I think that's a fair and accurate comparison to your trip to work. You're trying to navigate through a marathon. I was trying to navigate through monstrous thunderstorms last night. And I have a question for the listeners today. Major League Baseball or a steakhouse? The correct answer is both, but I'm not going to take out a loan. So what's going on? Good to see you.
Yeah, it was one of those mornings, Schmidty, I tell you what, where I'm boxed in. I'm taking my usual route to work. And my usual route to work, I want to preface this by saying I'm not anti-road construction. Let's preface this by saying that I love road construction. Well, I enjoy what road construction ends up being. Yeah. I appreciate having nice roads in the city of Lincoln. I appreciate that we have a city government that is going to put money into our roads to make sure that they're not all potholed up and the drive to work is horrible every single day. With that being said, I have had to take an alternate route to work every single day for the past couple of months, with 48th Street being closed here in the city of Lincoln. So I was taking my alternate route today, and then my alternate route was also closed because of the road race through Havelock. So now I'm flipping around trying to find a different way to get through Havelock, and it was a whole mess this morning. We eventually made it in. Apologies for the late start. I think Mark said it last week. Every single week there's something that comes up that leads us to a late start. So at this point, just expect a late start from us, I guess. But
well, hey, we're leading you up till 8. Brandon Vogel going to be with us. The Iron Horse Gary Sharp will join us as well. And it's that time of year where you're just now patiently waiting. It's preseason magazine time. Of course, the Hail Varsity Yearbook is just going to be awesome. I know you and Brady talked about that yesterday. I know Vogues will let folks in a little bit here as well. We really push that because we know how much you, the listener and reader, love Nebraska football, and the yearbook is always a masterpiece, and super excited for that. For you, the Husker fan out there, to get your hands on. So that is something on my mind. I know it's a recruiting weekend. It's kind of the Texas two-step weekend with a number of kids coming in from the Lone Star State and maybe a couple of in-state prospects that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But really, you have the Big 12 kind of chirping about what their plans are. You also have the SEC putting their ruling down on what they want to do. And what's the Big Ten going to follow suit with? In both instances, where you don't have to keep divisions. It doesn't look like the SEC is going to do that. The Big 12 scrapped divisions. Mm-hmm. And this is all in the name of trying to get your best two teams to play one another, which I'm all about. Now, it may be a rematch, and it may be a rematch sooner rather than later. You're not going to get the situation where traditionally it would be Oklahoma playing Oklahoma State for Bedlam, and in this new setup, before Oklahoma left, you'd get a rematch a week later. The Big Ten has not ran into that yet because they've had the divisions. The winner of the Ohio State-Michigan game or the Ohio State-Penn State game would usually end up in the Big Ten championship game against a Wisconsin or an Iowa. I know, am I losing my mind? Purdue made a Big Ten championship game recently before Braum took off. So you don't want the rematch factor so close together. So I wonder if we're going to find a time eventually where it's going to be Ohio State, Michigan earlier in the year. If you scrap these divisions, you still got to factor in what's up with UCLA and USC. I know the Big Ten's had meetings recently, and what is the scheduling component look like?
You don't scrap rivalry weekend, though.
No, I know. Maybe you would adjust it a little bit. You and I don't care. I just wonder from an audience standpoint, though, are you ticked if you're going to see 2 straight weekends of Ohio State, Michigan?
Well, that's what's kind of made that last weekend special in the Big Ten over the past
build-up,
couple of years.
The marbles.
Because it's for all the marbles. Whoever wins that game, Ohio State or Michigan, they're going to the Big Ten championship game. That's what's made it so fun. And it's hard to say what college football looks like in 2 years, what the overall landscape of the Big Ten looks like in 2 years, especially once you had USC and UCLA as you laid out. Maybe that's not going to be an all the marbles type game here in a couple years, but if you go divisionless, I don't think you can change what is a Black Friday tradition. Like, you can't move, I guess the day after Black Friday, the rivalry weekend tradition. Like, you can't change Ohio State, Michigan from that weekend. That's in part of the just ingrained within college football, that game. It's similar to the Iron Bowl that same weekend. Like, you can't move the Iron Bowl if you're the SEC, despite the fact that you've gone divisionless. And if Hugh Freeze has a turnaround at Auburn, could that be 2 straight weeks of Auburn and Alabama? Potentially. But the positive for the SEC going out there and going divisionless is that nobody is going to avoid playing Alabama for 5 years consecutively. No one's going to be able to avoid that now that you're divisionless. You're going to be playing 8 conference foes out of 14 rotating. Like, you'll at least get Bama every other year, if not back-to-back years and then a year off. So I think that's the big positive with their scheduling. We've bemoaned the 8-game conference schedule a couple times over the past couple days. That sucks. But the divisionless will be fun. You're not going to have teams avoiding anybody. You're not going to have, like, it's an SEC East team against an SEC West team. They're not going to play each other for 5 years. We're going to get that one matchup. That's no more in the SEC. You are going to be able to get your big brands against your big brands every single year. But as you laid out, does conference title games, do they become rematches moving forward? Does it take away from the conference title game because it is teams that have already seen each other this year?
Well, and you're just going to deal with it. But it's more of an NFL model. I mean, you see a situation where you play twice a year anyway. If you're in the NFC East, Philly and Dallas are going to play. So, and that's a good question here by Ken. Do you forgo the conference championship game? I think there's too much money involved with it to do it. Now, at what cost, though, right? If it's going to cost your conference a third playoff team, potentially, that all needs to be hashed out. You're going to expand the college football playoff to 12. You're going to be at an arms race to get as many teams in. By staying with 8 conference games, the SEC is going to protect some of their big dogs, presumably. And the Big Ten, they're doing 9. But 9, and Trev Albert tweeted about this week, where you look at the 9-game conference schedule, the Big Ten got 2 in this year, which is great. The SEC's had a couple of years where I think they've had 2. But till Tennessee faded, Tennessee was looking damn good to be a third SEC team, and it was going to be the Ohio State-Michigan winner as the fourth. So as the playoffs expand, it's going to be nice to have 3 to 4. You're gonna try and take a fourth of that playoff. If you're the Big Ten with that many teams, you're going to try and take a fourth of the playoff if you're the SEC, because you've already added Texas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been a really good playoff team over the years. They've been a team that's pretty consistent and gotten in. So no, it'll work out to the SEC's advantage. The fact is they don't have to go to 9, and they're not going to. There's enough ball games and enough scheduling when they scrap these divisions. TV is going to dictate a lot of the schedules. They're paying a boatload of money. They're going to get who they want when they want on TV. And they're going to get the viewers. And that's what the Big Ten's finding out with some of these late game November kickoffs. You and I are all about it. We love it. If that involves Nebraska, or I get to see a Michigan State USC, or a Nebraska UCLA at night, I'm good with it. So TV will dictate a lot of this. Money talks. We welcome in Brandon Vogel from HailVarsity.com and magazine managing editor, and at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogues, how we feeling this morning, man? I'm in a restaurant here at a Kansas City Hilton. I'm waiting on the baseball schedule. There's a lot of thunderstorm activity last night. We are 1-0-2, and I hear Junior in the background. He is asking, how the hell do you tie 2 games? We did down in Kansas City.
Yeah, he was thrown by the anytime you get that third digit in the win-loss record, you got to stop and do some math. I kind of miss ties in college football, but that's a whole other topic.
Really?
Well, yeah. I hate the new overtime, personally. I hate this system of, we're going to line you up at the 2 and you guys are going to do 2-point conversions till you find a winner. What a terrible way to determine a winner in college football.
Yeah.
I like the 20-yard line. I thought that was fun.
Yeah,
25?
They had it right. They had it right, and then they decided, like, there was that one Texas A&M LSU game that took 4 hours because it went 8 overtimes, and they're like, okay, let's find something new. You didn't need to fix what was not broken.
Yeah, I think that's where my thinking changed on that, is once we kind of had to start shortening the overtime period. I mean, the NFL's a mess too. Like, I'm coming around, I was never a big fan of ties, but sometimes, 2 teams just play each other to a stalemate, and that's the truest result. A truer result than, who misses or who makes the 2-point conversion last.
Yes. I don't know. Going with ties would be a little too European for American football for me, though.
I just wish there would have been overtime 40 years ago during a steamy night on January 2nd in 1984. Not that I'm not proud of the go for 2. I think that was ballsy and admirable. I just wish they would have ran the option instead of trying to throw it. Is that still too tender of a take? Why aren't you running the option?
No, but I mean, like, you think about, like, what role that plays in kind of the legacy of Tom Osborne. Kind of, it's a key turning point in his overall story. And, I mean, man, just think about that. Miami and Nebraska are running 2-point conversions into the night in 1983. A lot of things change.
Absolutely. Vogues, let's talk a little bit here about the yearbook. It is off to the printer. I am so happy for you and the Hail Varsity magazine team. Just an incredible group with Drake and Brady and Aaron, of course, Jacob, yourself. I love it every year. We love promoting it every year. Babbers have gotten a chance to do this for a lot of years. I mean, working on 10 years now with all of these yearbooks that are just exquisite, but this one's going to be special. And I love what was tweeted out yesterday. Big old Gabe on the cover, looking ready to not make it come down to a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, definitely. We went into that with a great story from Drake Keeler. Gabe was pretty open with his description of what last season was like for him, and of course dealing with an injury the year before that, and talked pretty candidly about what he's noticed with this new coaching staff that arrived. So it was definitely a tone of determination, I think, is what we went into that photo shoot hoping to get. And I feel like we got some really good options there. I'm so excited for people to see that full feature. Obviously, you can only put one image on the cover, but there's a lot of good stuff on the interior coming with that feature as well. And then a new thing we're doing this year, keep your eyes peeled to Hail Varsity Social within the next, I would say, hour or so. We're going to unveil the cover of the special kids edition that is going in with in the past for subscribers. It's kind of a thank you for the support and being with us, whether you're just getting started or been with us for a couple of years. We've sent out a calendar. People really like the calendar. In fact, I'm worried that people are going to be like, where's my calendar? But this year we decided to do a special edition just for kids. So kind of a different approach. Some really cool stuff in there. So that'll be coming out here within the next hour or two, I think.
So this is like Hail Varsity's way of, the football team has been losing kids over the past decade, but Hail Varsity's coming to the rescue, keeping the kids around, watching Husker football.
Man,
I would not say that's why we did it, but if it helps, it helps. But no, I mean, we've got plenty of football in there. So I tell the story. Sorry, I'm getting way off track here, but I'm super excited to do this and see if people like it, see if it's something that's useful. But I remember Sports Illustrated for Kids. I read there was a demo in there from a kicker. I forget the kicker's name, but it was like, here's how to kick pro style. And I still remember today, 3 steps back, 2 steps to the side, 1, 2, 3 approach. Like, this is how you kick a football. And I was like, man, this is great. So we're hoping to catch a little bit of that magic with this. We, with Brian Vicini, he's showing people how to punt in the magazine. We got a real detailed breakdown for him. So I think it's something that'll be fun. And, it's not just football in this. We've got plenty of other sports. And hopefully if people like it, it's something we can do again in the future.
Brandon Vogel joining us here, Hail Varsity Weekend Edition, streaming the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Check that out, the Hail Varsity Twitter feed on Hail Varsity Radio, at H Varsity Radio, KFOR Facebook and Twitter as well. Vogues, kickoff times have been revealed. I have not had a chance to talk to you much this week, so I find it hard that 10 a.m. is a reality, and we'll be fine. We'll roll with the punches. I know Colorado's probably disappointed for that showcase. Now, that being said, I mean, Fox is all in on Coach Prime the first 2 weeks. It could be ugly or it could be spectacular, maybe a little bit of both, not sure. But they're going to continue to get their window this year, at least through the first 5 games. And I don't know how well this year turns out for him just because of this drastic flip. Meanwhile, with Nebraska, how about if you're Coach Rhule, man? I mean, you get Fox primetime to literally kick off the college football and Big Ten season and show what you're about. And then, here's Boulder, by the way, to get the brunch going for a loaded college football Saturday. I think half the world's going to tune into that Nebraska-Colorado game, nostalgia prime, and Buffs and Nebraska. That'll get you going early. So good opportunity for Nebraska. The work, though, is ongoing to make sure it's not a TV debacle with your performance.
I mean, if Nebraska were to find a way to go 2-0 over that stretch, we might have to pull back on the reins, because things could get out of control in a hurry if Nebraska beats Minnesota on a Thursday night to basically kick off the season, so everybody's watching, and then you've got another game everybody's going to be watching. It's be like, oh, hey, Nebraska's 2-0 under Matt Rhule. Everything's fixed.
They're ranked third in the country.
Everything's great. So, maybe we'll have to that'd be a good problem to have if everybody has to exercise a little caution. But it's in terms of a showcase for getting a new era started, can't ask for much more than those two, I think, specific games and setups. So Huskers will have a chance to show what you can do in an off season. And I think no team's a finished product in week 1 or week 2, of course, but we'll see how far they've come.
Really fast, just because we're living in fantasy world here for a second. Can you imagine Nebraska and Michigan both undefeated, night game at Memorial Stadium? How ridiculous that would be after the past 10 seasons of Husker football. Like if Nebraska rolls in there, having won their first, 5 games of the season, and then Michigan's in town September 30th. I guess it'd be the first 4 games of the season. Whoo, Memorial Stadium would be rocking.
That's how it's supposed to go, right, Vogues?
It is true.
Right, Elijah? When you got brought into the Big Ten, that's how it was supposed to be going.
And I forget what Nebraska's record was the last time Michigan was in, and that, we didn't know Michigan was headed to the college football playoff at that point. They were 5-0, 6-0 2 years ago, and that game was pretty electric. So,
it was awesome.
Yeah,
they I think Michigan points back to that game and says, okay, we found a way to win there in that atmosphere. We've never really done that before. And Michigan has been really good under Jim Harbaugh, but they'd always kind of been the 10-2, 9-3. And they shifted a bit too, Votes. They went from high profile, high visibility type recruits, and they got 4- and 5-star guys, but they kind of just settled into, all right, here's who fits us. We're gonna try and go recruit those guys, and away we go. I mean, because Hoke had recruited well there, and Jim inherited some good talent, but they've really kind of found their sweet spot, I think, with who they want to go after. Yes, they're getting 4- and 5-star quarterbacks. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is always going to go do that. I don't think he knows what their ranking is, honestly. Many on his staff do, but they've been built on the lines of scrimmage. They've been really good, and they put a lot of front 7 people into the NFL.
Yeah, I think they found their quarterback, and they had 2 quarterbacks, two different quarterbacks, piloted them to those back-to-back playoff appearances, which is impressive. Because like you said, Michigan, and especially Michigan with Harbaugh there, they're going to have a problem landing, talent that Michigan typically lands. But you get that quarterback right, and then, some of their staff changes really worked. But for me, if we had to boil it down to a sentence, they've won the Joe Moore Award, which goes to the best offensive line in the country the past 2 years. And that's why Michigan's where Michigan is at. So if you want to think about Nebraska or any other team in the Big Ten or the country, like how do you flip that switch? That's a pretty great place to start. Just have the best offensive line in the country, no problem. Right?
What's interesting about Michigan's offensive line is I have their roster pulled up in front of me. I was curious about this. Their offensive line is built on players. I mean, almost half of their offensive line is either from the states of Michigan and Colorado, which is 2 interesting spots to have to go to. You have 5 offensive linemen on your roster from Michigan and 4 from Colorado, and then another 3 from Georgia on top of that. So it's interesting to see where Michigan is recruiting from for their offensive line. Obviously, Michigan is a huge place to get some guys, some local kids, that flair in the room. But also, they're going around the country. Colorado isn't the first place you think of when you think of being a recruiting hotbed for the Big Ten, especially Michigan. Or even Georgia. Georgia feels like SEC country, but there's 3 offensive linemen from Michigan's roster from Georgia.
Yeah, and they've done well. Like, I think their reputation over the past 2 years for offensive line has helped them, too. They did well in the transfer portal last year. Obviously, we'll see how some of those additions help this year, but they pulled 2 starters from Stanford, which is not a bad place for offensive line play traditionally either. So it's Michigan. They return a ton. The best returning production in the Big Ten, depending on how you want to measure it, but it's either them. I think Rutgers is up there. Maryland's pretty good. But Michigan this year is a rich get richer scenario, which comes with its own unique sort of pressure too. So they're going to be a fascinating team.
Folks, I want to go to some Nebraska football recruiting. Monster Texas weekend for Nebraska, and kids that have been in great communication with Coach Rhule and his staff, but the job that Coach Wager has done with his Texas connections, Coach McGuire as well. I mean, they're comfortable, and it's very clear they're comfortable down there in the Lone Star State. Just give me a thought here on the next 3 weeks for you. It's camp season. I know Sunday camp is for Nebraska with some visitors. That's the identification window, up close and personal. And then the end of the month, you're going to have your priority recruiting weekend. But Nebraska really going pretty hard after guys they've identified. I want to go to that point of things, the identification piece and your confidence level in it with this staff.
Yeah, pretty high so far. I mean, obviously, they added a bunch of players in the last recruiting cycle, and we got to see. Frankly, the group of early enrollees I thought was really impressive in the spring. So that group of guys, and it was probably most notable on the defensive front, but I think some on the offensive line too. So encouraging early returns. It'll be, it was enough for me to be like, okay, I think they do have it. It's not just talk. Everybody out there is trying to do this. You find the right fit. A little bit of what we were talking about with Michigan, but looked pretty good in the first chance we had to see it, and we'll get to hear more through the summer as the class of 23 comes in total, and see where things go from there. So I think June has the potential to be a pretty big month for this new staff on the recruiting trail. Historically, June has been a big month for just Nebraska, regardless of kind of who's running the show. Look at it from a perspective. It's kind of the sweet spot to get guys committed. In the analysis that I've done in the past, like the guys that commit in June tend to stick around. And I don't know, it's hard to explain why that is. But I think being able to pull the trigger and be like, yep, I'm set. This is where I want to go. I want to play my senior season of high school football and not have to worry about things. So it's got the potential to be a pretty big month.
Brandon, when you look at this summer in particular, what do you think is going to be more important for the long-term health of the Husker football program and Matt Rhule's rebuild? Is it going to be the summer of recruiting or the summer of summer conditioning and I guess OTAs, if you want to call it that, the getting the team in the door, get them through their workouts, getting them through the team activities? Is that more or less important than what is being done in the recruiting trail this summer?
Yeah, I think how you start a year one, even if it's the only year where you kind of get a pass as a new coach anywhere, like we're talking about Colorado, Deion draws a ton of attention. What happens if year one doesn't go so well? Well, it's year one. You undertook probably the most massive roster rebuild in the history of college football. So, people are going to be willing to take that context, but being able to get off to a strong start, a start that shows momentum at the end of the year. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to write off that year one as, well, it's year one. What can you expect? So I would put the emphasis, I think, on what you can do during the summer in terms of getting ready for this season ahead. The recruiting piece of it, they'll pay attention to it, like coaches always have to pay attention to it. But that's just a little further down the road in terms of the class of 2024. So I'll take what they're able to do with the team they have now as probably top priority.
Vogues, couple of questions and we'll get you out. So dilemma time. Major League Baseball game. It is Husker Day at the K today, 3:00. That's the good news. The other good news is we don't play today, so we can go to a Major League Baseball game. It's the Rockies they're playing. And the Royals, bless their heart, they are the biggest Oakland A fans in Major League Baseball because that is who is keeping Kansas City from being dead dog last in Major League Baseball. So do we go to the Royals game, even though it is Royals Day at the K, or do we find our way down to downtown Kansas City and fire up a vintage steakhouse that first opened its doors? There was a club speakeasy called the Majestic in 1924. And mind you, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, the scales are very even. Go spend $37 on a beer at a Major League Baseball game, or go spend a little bit of money on some bourbon and bone-in filet mignon, or Junior likes himself a New York strip. He didn't give me a quick answer last night. What would you like to do? And I said, both is not an option. So what would you do, Vogue? What would you do, Elijah, if you had a choice between going and seeing the Rockies and Royals in a 3:00 game, Royals Day at the K? That's kind of the obvious answer. We're all sports fans. But the Majestic, and I posted a picture of it on Facebook, I mean, it's such a cool joint, and it's sentimental. Dad and I got that's where he took me when we went down to see Zach Taylor in his first NFL game ever. It was preseason. So that's my connection. I vote steakhouse, but if Junior wants to go to baseball, I'll do whatever Junior wants.
What's the weather looking like today in Kansas City?
Oh, guess what? It's probably about 90 that feels 1,000 degrees. It's just a little bit more humid down here, right? Am I nuts?
Look,
Even coming back to the Big 12 days here where they'd have the Big 12 media days, guys, it's always just a little, and we're used to sticky. We grew up in Nebraska. But this soon, I mean, it's just a little bit sultry.
Yeah.
I might come in here with the unpopular answer, with the weather in mind, with who the Royals are playing in mind, and I say this being a guy who somewhat considers himself a Rockies fan. I follow the Rockies, but I don't like watching them because they make my heart sad. I don't know. The only real redeeming quality to the Royals game is the fact that it's Husker night at the K. That's always a cool event. There's always some cool swag you can get to take home from that. But Royals and the Rockies, that's not appointment viewing this season. A steak,
exactly.
Beautifully cooked, bonding time with the son, with son's teammates. You can get a little crew there. I look at that and I go, they're gonna have the Royals game on TV most likely. For the price, it's probably gonna be similar. You can't go to a Major League Baseball game with parking and food and beer and everything included for less than $80. Go to the steakhouse, spend $80 on food. You can. That's a pretty good meal for yourself for $80. I'm leaning steakhouse.
Junior, if you take Junior, I mean, it's gonna be a G. I'm kidding. If you take Junior, he's gonna want every year clockwork. He wants those damn strawberries on a stick that are chocolate glazed.
$10.
20 probably now. It's like, old man, get me a hot dog. So it's one of those foot-long deals. They do have the party deck that we could sneak our way into at Kaufman. But I do vote. I vote. Let's go have a couple of really good old fashions. And
not Junior.
No, I know, of course. Jeeves is driving tonight, and we get an incredible steak, probably from Nebraska.
I think it's a different scenario altogether if there's a higher level baseball team in town than the Rockies. That's what I'll say.
That's absolutely the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the last element to this dilemma is, I think his teammates and their folks and his coaches will probably want to go to the baseball game. So are we that family?
But I also understand the grind of there's a serious grind to playing high school baseball. Once it's spring season has ended, now you're into Legion baseball. Okay, here comes another full summer of baseball. It's not okay, or it's not wrong to get a day away from baseball every once in a while.
We may go make him throw a bullpen session based on how last night ended. or just run some foul poles. God love him.
Earn that steak.
Yeah, earn that steak.
This is a serious conundrum because I like steak about as much as anything.
Yeah.
And I hate humidity about as much as anything. You might be used to it. I'm from the High Plains part of western Nebraska. We do not have that humidity. So when I moved to Omaha for the first time, I was like, get me out of here. I didn't leave. I stayed. But
folks, you hate humidity and you hate the sun.
That's true.
And the beach.
And the beach. Love steak. And like going to baseball games. I think I'd probably go baseball game. It's a tough choice. I know the steak will be there later. Next time I'm in Kansas City. Baseball, who knows? Might see a no-hitter. Somebody might hit for the cycle. I know it's unlikely, but you just always go to the ball yard. I think is where I'd land.
It's unlikely to see a no-hitter or a cycle, but it's extra unlikely between the Rockies and the Royals. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. Vokes is like I err on the side of baseball. I'm going to need a guide through the Black Hills in about 2 weeks because we'll be doing a show from I'm getting shot down on the can I stay in Deadwood, please. My wife's not going to be able to make the trip with me, so I think I'm going to end up staying in Rapid City. Spearfish and Deadwood are about 40 miles west, closer to the Montana, one of the two. Sorry, don't have a map in front of me.
Wyoming,
right? Border.
Yeah, Wyoming.
So I'll probably sneak out for some golf there, but that's your neck of the woods. I mean, Vogues, you said to go through your hometown. Can I get to the Black Hills through your hometown?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to probably – depends on when you want to start snaking up from Lincoln. You can stay on I-80 all the way to Ogallala and go that way. My recommendation actually is once you hit Grand Island, hop on Highway 2, take you straight to Hemingford. It's a beautiful drive through the Sand Hills. It's pretty empty. You're not going interstate speeds, but I think most of the highways you could. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying you will feel out there on your own. On Highway 2, take you straight to Hemingford, stop in, ask around about me if you want, if anybody still remembers me there, and then just head up to Chadron, and soon enough you'll be in South Dakota.
Okay.
Well, and Brendan, you know what would be good camping spots around Hemingford for Schmidty? I know he's a big camping guy.
I'm not a big camping guy, so actually I don't. But you can always stop at Fort Robinson if you'd like.
I did that as a kid.
Yeah. Have you been to Deadwood before?
Yes, 20 years ago when I was working for Dakota State. Dakota State would play the School of Mines, and then they'd also play Black Hills State. So spearfishing in Rapid. And so home and away, you'd do a couple of basketball trips, you'd do a football trip for one or the other. So Black Hills State was there. And then the state basketball tournament was also in Rapid. So yeah, but my father-in-law went with me to Deadwood, and we did dinner on the third floor at Costner's Hotel when he owned. So it's been a long time, but man, I think Deadwood's cool. I really love spearfish. Left a monster impression. It was cool.
Yeah, that part of South Dakota is pretty fun. A lot. It's been a while since I've been back there, but we used to go to Deadwood quite a bit. Wasn't anything to be like, should we go to Deadwood tonight? And you get four guys.
How far? Just like 22
like 2.5
hours?
hours.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Vogues, one more shout out for the yearbook. I know the deadline is expired for folks to get signed up and have it as part of the subscription.
Actually, we can still get people in for
Sunday night at midnight.
Until Monday. Yep.
Monday midnight.
So,
all right.
Yeah. We extended a little bit based on the kids' issues, so we can if you're interested in getting this, if you're interested in anything we've talked about with the yearbook, there's still time, but it is dwindling.
HailVarsity.com/offer. Get the yearbook, get the subscription, the digital, the print, and it is going to be incredible. Vogue, thanks so much. This was fun to talk some ball, some steak, or baseball. That question, and then also the next road trip to South Dakota here in a couple of weeks. Have a good weekend.
You too. See you guys.
All right, thanks so much. And we welcome in the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp with us. Sharpie, how we doing?
Hey, good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good. We're here near the airport. At least I am in Kansas City for JV baseball. Little Legion action this weekend.
Gary, you look like you're ready for a luau. Is that a Hawaiian shirt you got on?
I am ready for the start of summer.
Good answer.
Yes.
Is this the summer of Sharpie, like the summer of George?
Wait a minute. Elijah, I like this shirt. Now I'm like feeling bad.
No, it wasn't.
It's like a Hawaiian shirt.
It wasn't a diss. It's a compliment. It looks summery. It looks like you're ready for a luau. That's a good thing.
I'm trying to convince myself. Yes. All right. Well,
you should see what I wore to my sister's high school graduation. It was a very similar shirt. Like I very much enjoy that style of shirt. It's warm and summery.
man. Okay, the fit is Kohl's.
Oh, nice. Good answer.
Shoes, the shorts. Yeah.
Designer.
Good answer.
Yes.
Good answer. So, Sharpie, we've had a lot to talk about this morning, but I'm going to get your take. I asked Vogue's, and then we'll get to football. But go to a vintage throwback Kansas City steakhouse tonight.
Yes.
Or go see the Royals and Rockies at Husker Day at the K.
Don't the Royals and the Rockies play in the afternoon, though?
They play at 3.
Okay. I would say steakhouse because one of those teams that's playing today is 17-41.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, and you've got enough baseball. You're a man of the steak, so I would say it's steak. You can come see the Royals whenever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, that's it. I mean, I think Vogue's is ruled steak. Sharpie is ruled steak. Elijah, you're kind of more towards baseball.
No, I'm leaning towards steak as well.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, if it was down to like Royals game or Joe's Kansas City Barbecue, it's Joe's Kansas City Barbecue all day. The one in like that's half gas station. You ever been there? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well,
that's my pick.
Yeah.
You know what? It seems like there's a trend, and especially like where you guys make your living in Lincoln, gas stations where you can get food, like a restaurant is attached to it. So it's like twofold. Usually those are like hidden gems, especially in the South where you can get some barbecue or some chicken or something. Mm-hmm. Or I think great names for bowl games now that we have the Pop-Tarts Bowl. If you can buy it at a convenience store, it is a great name for a bowl game.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a win.
Like you got beef jerky. You could have I think we've had a beef jerky bowl.
Yeah, you've had a beef jerky bowl.
All right, you can't get the bad boy mower at a convenience store. Yeah, you probably can't.
The overpriced deodorant bowl.
Ooh, yeah. Well, I will tell you, because I'm sure your wife has told you many times, and for young Elijah, this is a tip. If you're going to buy like deodorant, I wouldn't go to a convenience store because I don't know if you're in the market for paying $7.50 for a roll-on.
Or milk.
What's got a nice ring to it though is the sketchy non-FDA pills or non-FDA approved pills bowl. I'd go check that out.
Yeah. Does also anybody, when it comes to convenience stores in this state, find it a little bit, I don't know. You can walk in, like, especially on Fridays, man. They know everybody that's getting off work, getting ready for the weekend will come in. So they got the big barrel of beer that is iced down. But does it ever strike anybody that while you're there checking out at the counter and you might be buying the newspaper or, a pack of gum, they've also got all the mini bottles lined up there for 99 cents. And, the person behind the counter goes, hey, can I also interest you in a Fireball?
Yeah. Would you like a shooter before the road?
I know. That's what makes Nebraska great. I mean, it's right there. It's staring at you with 99 cents on it.
They were 89 cents, I hear, in Kansas City yesterday before the 3:15 ball game.
So we've got those kind of parents, huh? God bless those. Hey, on behalf of Elijah, God bless those umpires when they're dealing with your son's Legion team.
I kept my mouth shut. I needed it. Sharpie, a busy week with Nebraska and scheduling, also with the SEC and the Big 12. So we've got kind of a hit list to go down. But Colorado-Nebraska kickoff time, that was a theme this week, and it finally came down the pike. Big opportunity for Nebraska in the showcase. The year of prime gets off to a pretty big start with two big noon kickoffs right away. Are you a little bummed out, though, about 10 a.m. in Boulder, or do you get it?
I think it's okay. People are going to show up regardless.
Sure.
It's just, you're going to have to get your body clock going. If you're Colorado, you're playing at 10 a.m. local time. I don't know. I mean, that whole week's going to be a gong show, the lead up to it. And you know what is crazy, guys? And we've talked about this. You have two teams that were combined 5-19 last year that are playing in this game that are going to get a week's worth of hype. I think the first two games are great exposure for Nebraska. They're only up against Florida and Utah on that Thursday night at Minnesota, but it's on Big Fox. So we're going to get back-to-back weeks of Gus and Joel. And people are going to get to see Nebraska. You're going to have to show up and show out, but it's good exposure. I don't know, the 10 a.m. game, there's a lot of people that are like, well, you know what, I can get in and get out. It's not a good thing when the first thing people say is, oh, thank God it's a 10 a.m. game local, because those people are not going to liquor it up and they'll not have time to key my car. I mean, that's not a good sign. But I'll take the exposure leading up to that, regardless if it's at 10 a.m. local time or 11 a.m. here. But I'm adjusting. I kind of like the 11 a.m. kickoffs, guys. College football is steering us towards 11 a.m. is the window, or at least Fox is. I'm digging 11 a.m. games. I want to get up. I want to go to the game. I don't tailgate as much. Maybe I can tailgate after the game. But I want to get my day going. And if that includes watching Nebraska play, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and to your point, it's that aspect of wall-to-wall football should you choose to accept it. Like, you can start at 11 a.m. and watch till midnight if you so choose with the Pac-12 After Dark. You can start at 11, watch the first game, get some stuff done with your Saturday afternoon, come back and watch the primetime games. I feel like having that good window in the morning, 11 a.m. kick for college football might not be good for the fans at the game, but it's great for fans nationwide of college football that are parked on their couch.
Yeah, and don't you guys think this, and we've kind of bandied back and forth, is you look at the TV networks control everything. Mm-hmm. Like if ESPN said, SEC, you got to have 9, boom, SEC has 9 conference games. Mm-hmm. If TV networks say, hey, Big Ten, go get Washington, Oregon, and Notre Dame, boom, Washington, Oregon, Notre Dame are playing. We're to a point, and it's unfortunate for fans because we also get saddled with start times all over the map, and we get these 6-day windows, is the fans' importance, even though it means like to a school like Nebraska, hey, we want butts and seats, to the TV networks, they just want the inventory. They want the teams playing. If it affects the fans, so be it. We're giving you a lot of money. Just keep your mouth shut and play the football game. And that's too bad because we used to matter more. I think we matter to this prospective school, but to the TV networks, the only thing that matters to them is that our eyeballs are watching that game.
And the good thing about Nebraska is, despite the decade, people are watching Nebraska. I mean, there's still a power brand with the helmet games.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, so that Michigan game, there's not a lot of good games opposite the Michigan game on September 30th. There's Illinois, Purdue, there's Michigan State, Iowa. I mean, that's got a making of a primetime game possibly, or maybe an 11 a.m. kickoff. But I think we get down the road. I mean, I'm looking, they can flex that November 18th weekend. That looks like a Peacock NBC primetime game. I think one thing you'll see, because Nebraska is extremely popular with the eyeballs, is Nebraska hasn't gotten a streaming game yet. Wait till that happens for the first time and the reaction around here. Remember what it was like when we had the pay-per-view games back in the day of the Big 12? When we get a streaming-only game, people are going to lose their mind. And I'm right there with people from Washington to Michigan State. That could be a pretty good game, and that game is streaming only on Peacock. I know that's where we're going. I don't like it because we got to make it easy on people to find the games. And it seems wrong with college football that you would have just a streaming-only option.
Well, I'll say I'll take one for the fans. and I will find some alternative streaming options for those so-called events. Nebraska's got the shiny new facility. They got the head coach. They got the TV money anyway. If I don't pay for Peacock and fans at home don't pay for Peacock, not the worst thing in the world. There's some sketchy links you can find online that'll get you some free access to the games. I'll help out all the folks at home. You're welcome, guys.
At Herbal Essence is where you follow him on Twitter. Elijah's going to be going to the streaming jail here.
Well, did you see Mark Cuban on Twitter? Mark Cuban on Twitter.
He asked the question of all questions. How do you illegally download streams and where do you find them? I mean, he was...
Yeah, it was Narc Cuban.
Yes, and he was just in the interest of research. Well, can you help me out?
But he does ask, like, I understand why a team owner from an NBA team, like you saw the Suns, they're going to public television in Phoenix. I can understand you asking the question, saying, like, how big could our audience be if we make this available for everybody? How many people, it's hard to know the numbers, are going to illegal streams to watch these games? Where if we put it on public television in the city of Dallas, are we going to be able to draw more viewers in, be able to sell more ad revenue? Would it be good for us in the long run? I understand where the question's coming from. He probably should have approached it in a different way.
Probably. I like it. Sharpie, recruiting weekend. Thoughts on Nebraska's work down in Texas and just the month, how it could shape up for Nebraska?
Well, it's, we've seen the recruiting calendar change where the spring is pretty important and June has become really, really important. It's not so much, hey, wait till you get to the fall and get them on campus. It's get them here before the season starts. And so I think it's an important month for Nebraska. I mean, they've got a good recruiting operation. The problem that they have, and there's a lot of interest in Nebraska, and you want to see, and there's a blueprint for how Nebraska's recruiting. We can all see that. But Nebraska needs to win some recruiting battles. They need to beat either peer schools or schools that are above them for difference maker guys. And maybe that comes after a season of 12 football games where you can show somebody progress and they go, you know what? I knew you had it in you. Now I can see it. I'm all in. But I think it's important in this month, to get 5, 6, maybe 7 recruits, guys that you have as a priority, Buford's brother, the guys from Texas, and just continue to build that class and then hope that this year gets you headed in the right direction where you can win. Brandon Baker, a 5-star offensive lineman from California, isn't just, hey, it's mutual interest, but now I'm going around the country and I'm getting offers above Nebraska. It's, you know what, I can see something here in Nebraska, and I'm going to say yes to Nebraska because that's what they're lacking. It would be great to have in this class. We've already passed Dylan Raiola time. It'd be great to have somebody that you can look at and go, man, that's a game changer and a program changer, because if they say yes to Nebraska, other recruits go, what do they see? Maybe I should take another look.
Right now, that is the uphill climb. I think there's a lot of high-level kids that really, really do like Coach Rhule. Yep. They really like his staff. They're just on the fence right now with the blind faith part of this. Do I come in right now, square one, day one, without any proof? And that is tough right now for some of those high school kids. Some of them, sight unseen, they're good with it. Rules commented on that. I like guys who buy in without having to see the prove it part of it. But it's just not a fair fight right now with Nebraska as far as on-field performance, because you've not had a chance to prove that yet. Even in a year one, I think you'll see drastic improvement by Nebraska with Rhule and just how sound they are.
And don't you think, guys, that's the case. And, that's just how it works in recruiting. I mean, there's some kids that want to see it. But maybe it benefits Nebraska that the 24 class, which is your first full class, that you haven't yet coached a football game, and kids are committing earlier, so you're not going to play the first 2 months and people go, whoa, look what's going on here. I'm jumping on board. Is that the 24 class in the state of Nebraska is pretty good. There's some guys that are Big Ten players that are in this class that at least is a benefit to you before you establish yourself, and you can go with a wider net and people go, I get it. Nebraska looks a lot different. I'm in. In late 24 or when you start to put the 25 class together.
Gary, I'm going to reset a question that I asked to Brandon. I'm going to ask it in a slightly different way. But the two things are intrinsically tied. The Husker football season in 2023 and the Husker football recruiting class of 2024. Which of those do you think is more important? And I understand if you have a good 2023 season, it helps the 2024 recruiting class, so there's a bit of a connection there. But for the long-term health of Husker football, is it more important to throw together a winning season in 2023 and really work on that this summer? Or is it more important to make strides on the recruiting trail this summer and build a solid class for the future?
What if is 6-6 a winning season, so to speak?
Yeah, I'll call it a winning season.
You're bowling,
if you make a
Yes.
bowl game, Husker fans will be at least satisfied.
Okay, so that's progress. I think this whole season is about progress. You know, how do individuals make progress? How do coaches adapting that haven't been in the Big Ten before, how do they make progress? How does the program move forward when they face some adversity? I think the 23 season is more important than the 24 recruiting class, because I think you got to lay a foundation. And you also have guys that are bought in internally that like where they're going, they like how they feel. They just need to be validated. You know, look at last year. Don't you think that some of those guys that were really confident going into the year, if they could have been validated earlier, what that would have done for the length of the 22 season? I think that's what needs to happen is guys are doing the work. Guys feel like they're being coached well. They've got a blueprint. They just need to be validated. And I think if you see some validation in 23 where guys are getting rewarded for their hard work and they're winning and they can see it, then I think that goes a long way. And then it kind of helps the 24 recruiting class, but it also carries you into the 24 season. So I think it's important, the 23 season, that Nebraska, you know, makes progress week after week. Even a loss, winning is hard, but from the 31st of August all the way to Black Friday, that you can see guys are getting better and the program is getting better internally and externally.
Gary Sharp with us, the Iron Horse, Hail Varsity Weekend. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Kranak on assignment today.
Where is he?
I think he's got his own tournament. I think he helps coach his kids' team. Mm-hmm. So he might be right now hitting grounders.
Well, I was wondering because you said on assignment. I was like, well, is he like, with Will Bolt recruiting, or what is he doing?
I think Kranak can have a good time with about anybody.
That's true.
Would we wish that upon Will Bolt, though? Hey, here's Kranak for the weekend.
All right.
Will may never speak to us again on that. Sharpie, last thought. You had On Three's national reporter catch up with Kirk Herbstreit, and Kirk had plenty of nice things to say about Matt Rhule and his confidence in the ability for Matt to turn Nebraska around. What do you think of Herbie still? Is he a voice that you just were talking about validation? Is his voice, when he talks about a program, does he still have a ton of street cred with you? I know you've had interactions with him in the past as far as just the college football.
I think as he has gotten more exposure on ESPN, of course, people are, they like to take shots at him. I think he is a prevalent voice in college football, and people listen to him. I mean, him and Joel Klatt, those guys carry some weight. Now, here's what he said, and I don't know if you guys have seen Athlon, but Athlon, one of the things about Athlon, unfortunately, they go way early, so there is a picture of Casey Thompson in the Big Ten preview.
That's good.
But I'm always interested. I always turn to what an opposing Big Ten head coach or a assistant coach says about a team. And in this year's edition of Athlon, it's all about Matt Rhule. And there is a great respect across the industry for Matt Rhule, because he's a professional coach. Okay, I think he respects the industry. He doesn't take shots at people. He understands how difficult this is. And I think people have a lot of respect for him on how he's gone about his business and who he's been around. So people may not fear Matt Rhule in some circles, but they have a great deal of respect for him. And what he was able to do at two places that I'm sure Herbstreit at one time, if he ever talked about Temple, or remember, they were down at Waco for game day when Matt Rhule was the head coach there. They have a great deal of respect seeing where those programs were and where they were left when Rhule moved on. So I think what Herbie is saying is true. It's just everybody's waiting for when it happens. Does it happen in 23? Does it happen in 24? What does it look like when it happens? I think it's just now of, okay, what's the timing on when this program starts to pop? But you'll see. And this helps with Rhule. He's got a huge network in college football. So there's a lot of people that know him, that have contact with him, and I think they really, really like him as a person and also as a football coach. And you'll see that. I know we're going to get fired up and we're going to like, come on, Matt, say something about flex. Say something about prime. And he won't go there because he respects the profession. Now, he might subtly go there, but it's not going to be, just outward of I'm going after a program, wait till they figure us out. It won't be anything like that.
There's no hand grenades with Matt Rhule.
No, and you know what is, he's only 48 years old, but you look at, he's got a wide network. Scott was 44, and his network wasn't as large. I think that's important in the coaching industry of how large your network is and how many interactions you've had. And granted, Rhule's been at a couple of different stops compared to when Scott got here, but that goes a long way. So I think you'll see as this whole season goes along, a lot of programs in the Big Ten have a lot of respect for Matt Rhule because he's a coach. He's a professional coach. He's a guy that, man, I like what he's doing. I can see what he's doing, and he's doing it the right way.
Gary, is it as a college football coach, is it better to be respected or feared in college football? Because there's coaches out there that are feared. I think of a guy like Nick Saban, and other coaches might not say it, but that Alabama team scares people, or Urban Meyer's teams at Ohio State. They scared people in the Big Ten with what they could do to you. At least Husker fans were scared of Ohio State. And I think a lot of fans in the Big Ten were. Is it better to be respected or feared as a head coach?
Well, I think if you get your program to where you're feared, i.e. Nebraska in the 90s, man, before the game even starts, you might have a touchdown lead. Mm-hmm. I would take that every day that ends in Y. And, then it also drives you as a coach if you know that you have to face that every year. How do we become that? How do we get to that level? Is it recruiting? Is it coaching? What do we have to do? Do we have to knock off the top dog back to back and all of a sudden we're up there? Look at Georgia. People that have been interacting with Nick Saban, been on his staff, they go other places. Not everybody can replicate what they do in Tuscaloosa, but some guys have the magic touch, i.e. Kirby Smart. He walked into a great situation at Georgia. It wasn't a dumpster fire. It was a really, really good championship-level program that just needed that switch to be flipped. He walked in there and said, hey, I saw what they do at Alabama. Man, they grind, they do this, this, and this. We can do that at Georgia because we already have the resources. And you see it flipped right there. I would take fear because people will tell you when they were playing Nebraska, and maybe everybody during that run in the 90s, except for Colorado, because they had dudes on the other side that they felt like they could match up with. But most everybody else, before they came out of the locker room, they were like, man, we might be down a touchdown before we face Nebraska. Remember the old adage, Schmidty, you'll remember this? Nebraska would just roll the helmets out and they would be up by a couple of scores. We kind of joked about that, but it was true because you were like, man, we've got to play so well to beat that team that one mistake, they take that mistake and they put it in the end zone for 6.
Gary, right now with Michigan being top dog in the Big Ten, are they respected or feared?
Well, I think they're respected. I don't think they're feared, but I think there's a great deal of respect because they've accumulated a lot of talent. I think if they get to the championship and they win or they are competitive in the championship, then there's that fear. But right now, I think it's a huge deal of respect, just like there is in Columbus. I mean, Ryan Day's lost 2 to Michigan, but there's no one. I mean, you'd be a bad coach if you're not respecting what they're doing in Ohio State. But I will tell you, if Michigan is able to get to the championship and get away from their playoff faux pas, man, they could be a scary program because what they're doing on the recruiting trail. Wow, Harbaugh's finally arrived, and he finally got his quarterback, which is also very scary.
He's hit on his quarterbacks. He's nailed his offensive and defensive line, that front 7.
He's got some stability on his staff.
Yeah, and they're really, really high level there. And Sharpie, to your point, I mean, even some of those Colorado teams made the mistake of coming out of the tunnel, and they saw the tunnel walk, and there was some doubt that crept in when you talked to some of those former Buffs in the early to mid 90s. As good as those teams were, the intimidation factor very real with Nebraska football. Not just when the clock was running, but even before kickoff. It was a snake pit to come play in at night or at 11 o'clock or whenever. It had that edge. It had that 12th man to it. Memorial Stadium did.
Well, and just like Alabama and Georgia right now, and there's some other teams that when you play them, you're in for it. Is they don't tell you, they show you.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that, hey, wait till you get to Saturday. It's just like Saturday we show up and then you can see what a difference there is on the field. It's it's the haves and the have-nots of college football right now. But
Zach Wiegert might tell you, though. He might tell you where they're going to run the ball.
We're going to run off of my right hip here. Let's see if you can stop it, fat boy.
Break. That's pretty good. Sharpie, good to spend time with you. Thanks for jumping on today.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great Saturday.
You too. Appreciate you. There he is, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, weekend edition of Hail Varsity. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, where you go to get the podcast, and do so. Can get the segments you want or get the whole bleeping show. You'll enjoy it. We'll be back Monday, man. I'm blinking and a little withdrawal last 3 days not doing the show.
I knew you'd say that. I mentioned that on the show yesterday. I was like, I know if I know anything about Schmidty, I know after missing 3 out of 4 days this week, he's going to be itching to do a show. I said that yesterday.
And the dreaded text message at 8:00 last night to Elijah Herbel. Hey, dude, I think we're doing a show.
I was ready for it.
No, I know. I love doing this show. It's awesome.
Saturday morning might be my favorite show of the week, just in general. We get to talk to Brandon, we get to talk to Gary, and we're getting Mark in here. We get to have a lot of fun in here. We appreciate everyone who tunes in for the Saturday morning show. We try to put out a good product for you. So,
absolutely enjoy it. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at H Varsity Radio. Follow Elijah at Herbal Essence. My Twitter feed is at Schmidt_radio.
And before we get out of here today, Schmitty, I need you to get your prediction locked in. Do you think Nebraska locks up any more commits after this weekend? Yet 2 good candidates in Mario Buford and Caleb Pyeform.
I think you could see both pulling the trigger Sunday, if they haven't already privately.
I mean, do you see that picture last night Garrett McGuire posted down on the field?
Yeah.
Of Buford's
Coach
state
Rhule
championship ring from DeSoto?
Yeah, and then you had Rhule that was there, and didn't Matt have the old suit on and the tie?
He was doing a commencement speech from Brady. We think that was for his son's high school graduation in North Carolina, and then he flew directly to Lincoln to go visit the recruits still in his suit and tie.
Yep. No, it's all good. That was well done. Back at you Monday at 4 with Hail Varsity. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for spending it with us here on Hail Varsity Weekend. Get the podcast and get the yearbook. Do yourself a favor there, hailvarsity.com/offer. We'll talk to you on Monday.